About 11 years ago, there's a group of people got together. It was an academic conference, you know, at its core, to talk about the Chicago freedom movement. It's like Dr. King came to Chicago, the movement people were all up there, and stuff went on. But so many things were going on that it's hard to tell that story, and nobody had done it. So 10 years ago at the conference, all these people were presenting, people who had continued working in their respective areas on things that were going on in Chicago. Open housing. You know, Chicago's very segregated. So there's one woman that I work with now who, Gail Schechter, who had worked for 22 years on Chicago's North Shore, some of the wealthiest zip codes in the United States, trying to have affordable housing up there. And I'm thinking, who's this crazy woman who would, you know, pick some task like that? You know, you're talking about. but she's the child of Holocaust survivors. And I'm like, oh, you know, and I started to get to know her and understand. So there are 3 of us that are working in Chicago, and Mary Lou Finley flies in to help us. Kazu has flown in to help us. But so Bernard Lafayette and most of the other people connected with the conference and then the book that came out of the conference have this idea that you shouldn't just have dry academic conferences, right? You should get youth involved. So we started doing that kind of informally 11 years ago. And then it led to us starting a nonviolence training center. So my part, the chapter I wrote in this book was because of Bernard. So he drags me to this high school with him saying, oh, Sherry, you know, this is 10 years ago. You gotta come with me. I can't talk to these high school students by myself. I need for you to interpret. I'm like, Bernard, you do realize I'm 45 years old, right? He's like, yeah, but still, you know, so anyway, I went, and I thought I'd heard all the movement people's stories, all the stories, you know, I thought I'd heard it all. But he starts telling a story about high school students canvassing Garfield Park, taking urine samples from the younger children to test them for lead poisoning. And my mouth was just hanging open. Needless to say, the high school students that Bernard was talking to were all, you know, just enthralled as well. But there's a whole lot to that. But basically, the elder Mayor Daley stole their project, you know, and wouldn't hire any of them to do what they had been volunteering for months to do. But scientists in the public interest picked up on what they were doing, and at one of their national conferences, they're talking about this project, and it spread to about half a dozen other cities, and ended with us getting federal legislation to protect children from paint and yeah. And if you look, you know, just as with movement activity generally, there's always been an environmental justice movement too. But when we think about the modern environmental justice movement, the roots are the civil rights movement. Some of the first people that got arrested at this action that kind of launched the modern environmental justice movement are civil rights people. And so, you know, I just pulled all that together. And it's so important that we preserve the history of people's movements. A lot of times, when what other people consider their considerations about who constitutes a great man, male or female, is different than ours. And so it's important that we decide what's important to preserve and do that. You can, Vanessa, thank you so much. You can, so anyway, 2 of the editors and 2 of the contributors to the book kept working, you could click through there, kept working. Oh, I love this quote. We were talking to some of the students, and one of the young men, they were like upset. They're like, they don't even teach us our history. And you know, and Pam, one of the women I worked with, was like, okay, yeah, you know, they don't teach us our history. And she said, okay, but you know, why does that upset you so much? And that's what the young man said. He said, if I don't know my history, I don't know how to value myself. Mm-hmm. And so this work, in addition to teaching principles of nonviolence, we're teaching young people their history. This is Dr. Lafayette, and so we found that one of the things that's working here works in Chicago too. As I said, Chicago's very segregated, so we've got students from different parts of the city and metro area, and they've come together and they are, you know, bugging us. I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we like bringing them together because they're learning so much and developing a sense of being citizens of the area, not just their little bubble. And they really resent being as segregated as they are. And so, you know, that's another thing that's going on. They're really getting to know each other, getting to know what problems the different schools around the area are facing, and they're working with each other on their projects.